All right, guys, we are back. We are going to do a more advanced wood grain today. We're going to layer it and make it look like a wine barrel. It's going to be super fun. I am Summer Noel with Littlelee and Rose. I hope you guys love this tutorial. This is a really fun cup to do. It's been very, very popular. This one we're actually going to do for my mother. She is the one who inspired this whole look for me. My mom and my dad grow their own grapes and make their own wine, and they have a little mini vineyard and they call it Tipsy Turtle. So I'm going to make her this beautiful wine barrel Tipsy Turtle cup. That way she can take it whenever they go to wineries and do wine tasting and show it off and tell her how amazing their daughter is. So just a little touch on the backstory of what we're doing today, but you obviously do whatever you want with this. Run wild with it. This actually looks really good as a whiskey barrel. You can make it a wine barrel or a whiskey barrel and put some really cool decals on it. But this just today for me with my decals, what we're going to do is for my mom and the Tipsy Turtle Vineyards. So what you need today is I always have a paper plate and a paper napkin on hand for when I work with alcohol inks. You need one of these foam brushes. I find these to be the best for wood grain. You need your cup you're going to work on. You need a clear matte finish enamel. You want it matte finish because that's what works best with the inks. You need a primer color. White, I use the 2-time Rust-Oleum because it gets the best coverage. You need your chemical mask because you are going to be working with epoxy. You need your epoxy A and B. You need a little mixing cup, popsicle stick to stir it. We're going to only need one little cup today because we're doing hang method on the cup, so it only takes a tiny little one. Nitrile gloves. These are really important for safety. And this is going to be the vinyl you're going to want to use. You don't have to use this vinyl. You can use whatever you want, but this is the one I use. If you can see in the camera, it's kind of like a burnished metal looking vinyl. And then you need a little piece of black. These are for the parts that are going to make it look like a wine barrel. For the other decal, you can use any vinyl you want because it's going to be ripped up and thrown away. You'll see what I mean when I say that throughout this tutorial. I am currently working on the design that I want on this cup, but I figured I'll be working on that while this cup is curing through the first process, so I have a day or so to work on that. But I have an idea of what I want, and I'm designing it in my design space right now. So I don't have the decal yet, but we will get on that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get this cup prepped and started. And if you haven't prepped a cup, go back in my YouTube tutorials and look for prep a cup and also watch that one and also watch how to spray paint a cup. I have them both there for beginners to start, but I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to go get this cup prepped and started, and I'll be right back with you guys. So we've got the cup prepped and ready. I've got the spray paint on it with the matte finish. The colors that I'm going to use today are, let's see, I think I picked out caramel, ginger, and espresso. So for the first round, I'm going to put these two darker ones out of the way, and we are going to use the caramel to start. We're going to do the light color first. We are going to do a layering today. So we're going to do the caramel first and work from there. If you haven't seen my basic wood grain tutorial and you watch this one and you feel really lost, go back and watch my basic tutorial because I'm going to kind of skip over some stuff because I've already gone through the basics, and this is going to be a little bit more advanced technique. So if you feel lost in this video, go back and watch my basics tutorial on wood grain. Okay, so we are going to jump right in on this one, and we're going to just use the caramel is what I picked. This is my lightest color. So we're going to jump in. I've laid the paper towel down today, guys, because I get messy with my alcohol inks, as you probably saw on my original beginner's tutorial for this. And I am doing a lot of tutorial filming today for you guys. I've got a big schedule, and I can't get this white cloth wet because it takes me a day or so to get it washed and dried. So I got to be careful. I got the paper towels down to block some of the overspray that I do. See, as I flick it off the cup, I make a mess. So I'm just going to catch that. And we're just going to start with our lightest color and get this cup started with the lightest color. You can see I don't take any fanfare with this. I just slap it on. I use the bottom of the cup as almost like my paint tray, as you saw in my first tutorial. And the more you brush, the more wood grainy it looks. As it's drying, as the ink is drying, it gets it like the stripes that make it look wood grain. Now, what I say to people with wood grain is don't overthink it. Just do it. Just get in there, smash this on there, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down a lot to get that really grainy look. If you leave little spots like this, that's all right. It looks like a little knot in the tree. It won't hurt it at all. Plus, this is going to have layers of colors on it. So even if you if you don't overthink it, if you have one little spot you don't like, it's all right. When you add the next layer, cover it up. Just get this ink on there. It's really fun. So in my other tutorial, I talk about the colors you want to choose for your wood grains. And I recommend doing a test strip. I always recommend that. I will continue to recommend that, because what I mean by a test strip is put a little dot of the ink on a piece of paper that you've spray painted white, and then spray paint your clear coat over the top. Because a lot of these inks, not a lot, a few of these inks, the sepia tone inks, will turn green under the clear spray paint coat. And it is really annoying. Some of them, and that's why I say do a test strip and let it dry. Some of them turn green right when you do it, but when it dries, it goes back to its natural color. But not all of them do that. Some of them, when you do it, they dry and stay green. So I know for a fact that the Ranger, this is Ranger brand that I'm using, you guys, I believe. Yeah, Ranger brand. The Ranger brand Latte is the one that turns, it definitely turns green and stays green. Now, I think that it is this, I think it was caramel that I tested, and when I spray it, it turns green, but it fades, it goes back to caramel as the spray paint dries. Okay, so we've got this, that's how fast it goes, guys. It's nice and quick. So now what I'm gonna do is I am going to take this cup, sorry, I'm screwing the top of my ink back on so I don't forget. So what I'm gonna do is take this cup, I'm gonna do a hang method, no, sorry, backing up, don't listen to me there. I'm going to clear coat spray this with my Rust-Oleum Matte Finish Clear Enamel. I'm going to give it 2 to 3 coats to make sure it's well coated so that when I epoxy over the top of it, it doesn't smear my ink. If you skip that step and miss that step, when you epoxy, all this ink is going to smear and it will no longer look like a wood grain. It'll just like a smooth brown, beigey, whatever color this would be considered, like oak color. Okay, so you need that layer of clear coat spray paint between the epoxy and your alcohol inks to maintain this look of the wood grain on the cup. Okay, so I'm going to spray this and I'm going to do a round of epoxy, and we will be back. If you've never seen me do the hang method, go back and watch my beginner tutorial on this, and you will see how I do this. I'm going to zip through this phase because a lot of you have already watched that and already know what that step means. So I'm going to spray paint it and hang method it, and we'll be back. So we've got the cup done with 2 layers of epoxy with the hang method. If you don't know what that is, go back and watch either my hang method tutorial or my previous tutorial on the basics of wood grain, and you'll be up to speed right here. So this has 2 layers. I put 2 layers on because you want a nice good coat on it so that when you put on your decals and you layer over this and then you remove your decals, you don't lift the paint or the epoxy up. I've done it with 1 layer and it's not thick enough because the hang method is so thin that it's not thick enough, and so you need 2, and because it will lift, so you need 2 layers to make it firm enough and enough of it to not have that issue. Okay, so we have my decals that we're gonna put on now. I'm gonna pick my favorite spot in the wood grain. I'm gonna go with right here. I'm going to put it right here because we've got a little texture here. We got some texture here. Maybe we'll get little bits and pieces of that through here. And so what you want to do when you're wrapping your decal, if you're doing, I'm doing this a relatively big decal because I want it to be very noticeable. I want my mom to be able to show off her winery and people can see it real well. So what I do is I put slits in the through the paper and through the vinyl, the contact paper or transfer paper. And this way you can, it's a little more flexible when you're applying it. You can lift and move, like if this needs to curve around, it can curve up to get the curve of the tumbler. Now this tumbler doesn't have a very large curve. I really like working with this variety of tumbler. So that's why. So when you're placing your decal for this cup, keep in mind you're gonna be putting the bands on it up and down for the wine barrel part. So I want to definitely leave a good inch above for the strap to go for the wine barrel. And so we are going to go ahead and remove this. It's always a little tricky once you've cut it to pull it off the backing, but it works. So what I do is I start in the middle. I press from the middle. I actually bend the, you can see, because if you just go like this, the little bits of it will, it's almost like a magnet, and it will like move on its own towards your cup and stick to your cup. So I bend it away so it can't do that. And I line it up and I stick down the middle, and then I do one side at a time. And I keep it under, I keep the one on this side up while I press this one down. And like I said, because this cup is so awesome, it doesn't have a hard curve on it. I didn't have to work too much, but you can actually see, if I bring this up here, it overlapped here and it overlapped here, which means it needed those slits to not buckle and pucker as I wrapped it. So then I'm going to go ahead and do this bottom piece. Sorry, the left side, it's not bottom. Okay, and you want to make sure these are rubbed down really well, because we're going to spray paint over the top of it. And if they're not rubbed down really well, you will get paint underneath, and it'll kind of mess up the whole look. So you want to make sure they're rubbed down really, really well. You can see how hard I'm gripping this cup. I'm pushing pretty hard. Okay, and then we're going to lift it up, lift off that contact paper. Comes off a little funny because you've cut it, so you have to take it up in pieces. Okay, it's just kind of your standard application of a decal, but there we go. Okay, and it doesn't matter what color you use of your decal. I never ever use whatever this weird tan gray color is for anything else. So I kind of use that as my decal paper when I'm going to just remove it and trash it. So then I just, for a fun little detail, I printed out some grape leaves. I was going to do grapes, but I think it's a little cliche. Who knows? I don't know. I saw these grape leaves and I thought those will be super gorgeous laid down here next to this. Because this is a much smaller decal, you don't have to do the slits and cuts. It's a lot easier to work with. But again, make sure it's rubbed down really well. I'm just lining it up. Sorry, this is the only time you'll hear me quiet and not talking. It's when I really concentrate. Otherwise, I'm talking a million miles an hour, so I get through these tutorials for you guys real fast. Okay, so you see I'm pressing really hard to make sure that's down really well so the spray paint doesn't get behind it. Okay, so that's gonna be absolutely gorgeous. She's gonna freak out. She doesn't know I'm doing this for her. Her birthday is actually tomorrow. She's born on April Fool's Day. So we always crack jokes on her birthday, but she doesn't know I'm doing this for her, but she's going to love it. So I'm going to take this outside and I'm going to spray paint over this white, and we will be right back. Okay, guys, what you see now is the decal is on, the cup is covered in white, and now I'm going to take my brush and the ginger color, and I'm going to apply the ginger just as I did the first layer, and then we're going to keep on rolling. Okay, so I misspoke. I completely forgot this step. So what you do is you do the ginger first, and then we got to do a coat of clear spray paint. So I'm going to finish off the bottom, then I'm going to go and do a full coat of clear spray paint over this before I start the espresso. Again, it's because if you don't do that, you're going to get weird streaks in it of white. It's a weird thing, and I explain it, go through it all in my basics video. So do the ginger, well, or your first color. You might not be using ginger, but you do your lighter color, then clear coat spray it, and then do the espresso after that, or your darker color. All right, I'm gonna go finish this up on the bottom, and then I'm gonna go out and spray paint this with clear coat. All right, so we've got the layer of the lighter ginger color, and then a very good solid layer of clear coat spray over the top. This actually kind of let this happen, so I wanna show you. If you clear coat spray too heavy, see how it kind of muddles the color up, and it stops looking like wood grain and just kind of gets like, almost like, I don't know, a blurry picture. That's why you want to do thin layers. I did that a little bit. I'm going to cover that up so you're not ultimately going to see it, but I want to kind of show you what happens if you do too much. Also, if you forget to clear coat spray it, that's what your epoxy will do to it. So it'll lose this wood grainy look, and it'll get this real soft, almost like blurry image look, which is fine if that's your style, but that's not what I'm going for with this cup. So we're going to switch and start doing the espresso. So I'm going to do the same kind of techniques. is that one. And we're gonna brush on some of this darker. I don't want to coat it. I just want to get some tendrils of it. This is one of the fastest cups to make because all the processes, all this ink dries so quick, and the spray paint, the clear matte finish spray paint dries real quick. So it's a really fast cup to make, and it sells incredibly well at like if you do like a farmer's market or a street festival. These wood grains will, if that's not what they buy, it's going to be what brings them into your shop. That's going to make them walk into your booth, because people are really fascinated with this. They actually think that they're looking at a wood cup, and it's pretty cool. And then you explain to them that you make it by hand, and they sell really, really well. People love them. So these wood grains work good for fishing tumblers and like hunting tumblers, and just really cool. They make really good men's gifts. I got ink all over my hand. Whoops. I am a messy crafter. All right, so that is beautiful. We'll do a little bit more right here. So if you've watched my basic tutorial, you know that I've never actually watched another YouTube on this. I have no idea how other people do it. So I could be doing it exactly like everyone else or completely different. I have no idea. I just know I saw somebody's wood grain in a picture once, and I thought, well, this is how I would do it. And I just went for it, and that's how I did it. And that's where I'm at today, doing it like this. Actually, that's kind of cool. So this must be a little spot where I see this. This is what happens. This is a perfect example. This is what happens when you miss a spot with spray paint. It changes the color. So see there and there. But I actually kind of like it because I rubbed enough to make it look like part of the wood grain. And this one is actually over the vinyl, so that won't show anyway when I pull the vinyl up. But that's what happens. So I must have missed that with my spray paint. By the way, what you're not seeing off camera is I'm spray painting with all three of my kids staring at me through the glass window and wanting to come outside and play with me while I spray paint. So I'm a little distracted, and it's a little nutty in this house on Sundays. So I'm going to do a fun knot. So right there, so what you do to make a knot is you just slowly dab on it, almost like over, actually that looks exactly like, those look like two knots right there. But since that looks so goofy having two, I never do even numbers. If you're going to do, you do one knot or three knots, not two knots. So I'm going to actually oversaturate and make a second knot. Again, I have no idea if this is how you actually make a knot. This is what I do to make a knot. I just oversaturate with the ink. And it looks really cool. Okay, that actually looks really, really cool. Okay, so I'm not sure if you're picking up how cool that looks on camera. But those knots are really, really, really cool. And those were happy accidents. That's what I call happy accident. So you can see how light it was when I started, and now you see how dark it's gotten. So it's gotten to be like a really, really, really dark wood grain, and it's very pretty. But you need that light layer under there because you'll see when we pull that vinyl away that it's going to give it a really, really cool effect. And you want the lighter ginger layer underneath because you can see that's what gives you all this texture and definition underneath and between that darker alcohol inks. So that's why you layer it. So we're going to just do a little bit of the dark on the bottom. Okay. All right, that's awesome. I'm going to let this dry. We're going to do a clear coat spray over the top. Then I'm going to put epoxy on it. Oh, nope. Sorry. Pause. I almost misspoke again. I get so excited to move forward with you guys and get these tutorials done for you. Sometimes I skip stuff. Actually, so what we're going to do now is let this dry. We're not going to clear coat it yet. We're going to let this dry. The reason you're not going to clear coat it, because if you clear coat it and then you try to remove these vinyls, sometimes that clear coat creates a film on the top, and when you lift it up, it pulls up the alcohol ink that's around it. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to let this air dry in front of a fan, and then I'm going to go through and pull up all this vinyl, and then we're going to clear coat it. All right, so I'm going to let this sucker dry, and we'll be back. Okay, guys, so this one has, the alcohol ink is now dry. There is no clear coat spray on it yet. You're definitely going to hear my kids in the background. So what we're going to do is now we're going to remove this vinyl, and we're going to expose the light color underneath. So you want to be very careful when you're doing this. You want to just barely hook the vinyl and try to lift and pull it very carefully. You don't want to pull too fast or hard because you'll end up lifting up too much of the alcohol ink with it, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to pull anything extra. You want to get just the vinyl with just the words and the edging. And just go real shallow with your stick because you don't want to gouge the epoxy underneath, because that'll leave a mark for sure in that wood grain. So you just want to go real shallow and scoop real shallow on that surface of that vinyl. The more detailed the image you get, the harder this is to do, guys. So that's why I chose a nice chunky text. It actually is the closest text to their actual winery sign. And so this one, so you can see how that's revealing that beautiful light colored wood grain behind it. You want to be careful not to slip. If you do slip and scratch the cup, it's all right. Just go back through. Just stop what you're doing and go back through right then and hit it with a little more alcohol ink before you keep removing vinyl, because if you do it after, you're going to smear the darker color into this light color, and you don't want to do that. But if you go nice and slow, you shouldn't have any problem with scratching or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and jump off, speed this up for you guys, and finish this process out while you guys just hang out. Here we are, we're back, and I've got all the vinyl pulled away. Sorry, I know that is a very tedious process to watch, but it's very important to go slow and steady so you don't gouge anything, you don't rip anything up that you don't want to rip up. But I just kind of wanted to point out how really cool these like knot spots that were happy accidents turned out. They look beautiful. They're just really cool little details in there, and it really helps that yellowy base of wood grain really stand out. It's gorgeous. The leaves, all the little detail in the leaves came out absolutely beautiful. That's why I was being so careful to go around, because I didn't want to scratch or gore those at all. So what we're going to do now is clear coat spray this, let that dry, and then I'm going to put a full layer of epoxy on the top before we start the next step. I'm not going to do hang method on the next step. You can, if you don't have a turner, go ahead and do like 3 coats of hang method, and you'll be up the same step. But I'm going to throw this on my turner and get a nice thick layer of epoxy on it before we start the next step. All right, I'll see you guys when we're all finished with that. All right, guys, I have the entire cup. I've got a nice good coat of epoxy on there. You watched me apply it. I was just dipping and using my applicator brush. This is a silicone makeup brush. I will make sure, everyone always asks me when I use these, so I will make sure I use this link in, put this link down in the drop-down menu, because everyone else asks me about these. You can reuse these when the when epoxy dries on the silicone. It just pops off and breaks off. It's no big deal. It's very, very easy to work with, and then you can reuse this over and over and over. This is just nice because it keeps your gloves clean. It keeps your hands clean. I reuse my nitrile gloves until they die. So this actually keeps them lasting longer, so I can use the same pair for multiple days because I'm applying with my brush. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Just depends on what my mood is and if I feel like hunting one down, because my workspace is always kind of a disheveled mess, even though I'm so organized here, because I'm like chaos and orders over there. So yes, this is a fun little treat. This is my little thing for this one. Woo! A little fuzzy just landed on there, but I'll grab it. Okay, and we're going to let this cure. I'm going to let it turn for about 6 hours, And then I'm gonna turn it off and put it on my drying rack and let it cure probably overnight, and we'll be back. Bye guys, see you soon. We are back, and the tumbler has a really good layer of epoxy under it. I put my signature cute little thing on the bottom. It's Tipsy Turtle Vineyards, so I thought a little turtle on the bottom, a cute one, goes well with it. So it's just a fun little thing on the bottom. Now we are gonna make our wine barrel straps. So as I showed you in the beginning, you guys, you just need a little tiny piece of black. I cut out some dots. I made these like, I don't remember, a third of an inch. These are tiny, and then these are 1/2 inch straps. You can, but see that I just measured and went with what was gonna look good between here and here. If you place your decal lower, you can make a thicker strap or skinnier strap. You can do it however you want. So we are gonna make these straps. You can leave them silver if you want like a more newish look, but I want a more vintage look. So I'm gonna show you how to vintage this vinyl up. We are gonna use alcohol inks. We're actually gonna use the espresso, which is the dark ink that we used for the cup. I have these little scissors in case we need them for when we start wrapping the vinyl around the cup. So I'm gonna sit those off to the side because we don't need those right now. And your brush. Now the last color I used on this was dark, so it's no big deal because we're gonna just go dark to dark. So I always have my little holder for my brush and a plate with just to protect my yellow. I'm gonna bring this in here. This is just an old piece of cardboard that actually is off from one of my Tumbler shipments. And I put a paper towel on top of it. So now what you're gonna do, you're gonna set your little black dots aside. You don't need those now. You're gonna take your alcohol ink and your brush. You're gonna just put a little on there. You don't need a lot. Just a couple little drops. Sorry, it's not dropping out. There we go. A couple little drops. And you're just gonna dab it. And you need to work fast because this dries quick. And the whole thing is kind of like the doing the wood grain, except for you're dabbing and kind of brushing and dabbing on this to kind of give it just like a rusty metal look. Because the silver is pretty, and actually when you buy a brand new wine barrel, it is silver, but over time with the aging of that wine and the storage of that barrel, it turns kind of rusty. And my parents live on a little farm on a lot of property, so it's kind of a rusticy look. And so I want to kind of go with that whole idea. Plus I like the burnished look better. So just by kind of smearing and splotching, you don't want to do nice long streaks just like that. Otherwise you just look like you have a wood grain, more wood grain on wood grain. You actually want to splotch it up, and you saw how little ink it took. So then what you want to take with this is, one, you want to let it dry. Then you want to just dust it with a clear coat matte spray. And when I say dust, I mean just dust it. And you might want to do, if you've never watched my How to Spray Paint a Tumbler, you should watch that so you can understand what I mean when I'm saying dust it. You just want a very soft layer, and then wait, and then add another little soft layer, and then wait, and then add another little soft, and slowly build up the layers. Because if you saturate this, it's really easy to saturate the vinyl because it's so, the finish on it is so fine, so smooth, that even the smallest extra amount of paint will make this just go blurry. So just dust it, and then dust it, and then dust it. So I'm gonna take this outside and I'm gonna spray paint it, and we will be back. So I've got about 3 layers, I have 3 layers of dusted on clear coat onto this paper. It's all dried and ready to go. I actually had within those 3 little tiny coats, I had a gnat already try to land on it. So I had to protect it for you guys. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start from the back. We're gonna peel up. We're gonna start from the back, and I'm gonna start from the bottom. I have my, well, we don't need the dots yet, but I have 3 types of cutting tools ready, because you never know when you start wrapping what you're gonna get into and what you're gonna have to problem solve while you're wrapping. Because sometimes these curves are different. So this is this cup, but every curve is different. And every contour is different. So you have to be able to problem solve as you're wrapping, because you want it to go on flat and smooth. All right, so we're gonna start with this facing down. I'm gonna peel. You're gonna do this by hand. You're not gonna use a transfer tape, because if you use a transfer tape and you lift the transfer tape off, you're gonna remove that paint and that alcohol ink. Okay, so I wanna put it, first actually I wanna measure from the top. So from the top, I'm gonna be about a 1/4 of an inch down. So from the bottom, I wanna match that. I'm gonna make sure I line this up down, and then put my line here and we're gonna go about 1/4 of an inch up. And I'm gonna wrap it very carefully and just try to keep a nice smooth line. You see, I didn't remove it completely from the tape, from the backing. That way I don't have a flop of tape hanging out that's sticking to everything as I go. I keep it completely in control as I wrap it, and I just undo a little bit at a time. I put tension on it so that I know that it's getting a good seal down on my cup. So you can see, I don't know if you can see my knuckle, it's almost white knuckling it. I'm pulling it and laying it down very carefully in a line. Trying to keep the same distance as I go. And you can see as I'm doing this, because I've painted it, my finger is not rubbing off any of that alcohol ink as I work it around and pull on it. Okay, so this one, luckily, is a pretty easy cup to work with. There's very, very little contouring on the bottom of this cup. So we're lining up almost identical to this bottom piece. Okay, so I always make it extra long, just in case it's not going to work. So I'm now at that bottom piece. I mean, just in case, just to make sure I have enough length. So I'm gonna kind of just do very similar what I do with my fabric tumblers. I'm going to slice through, but not hard enough to really go through to the epoxy, but just hard enough to go through the tape. And if you really want to, you can lift. Mine got a perfect seal, so I'm not going to mess with it. But if you have a lump or a bump and you've cut through, you can cut through that bottom layer as well. Lift this up, just like in my fabric tumbler. Peel that extra little piece out that's underneath there, and then press it back down, and you'll have a perfect seal. However, I'm not going to do that on this one because I got a perfect seal, and I got it perfectly matched up. So that's going to be your bottom strap for the bottom of your wine barrel. Then we're gonna go and do the top. I just realized I forgot to even measure this, and I am about 1/4 of an inch short. I didn't even measure. I just made this as wide as, I don't know, I just guessed on a number. Dang it! So okay, I'm gonna go back and make a new one, guys. We'll be right back. So I fixed my problem, and I made it just a little bit longer. So what we're gonna do is the exact same thing. We are gonna flip it over. Got a little piece of glitter stuck there. You can see I did a tutorial on chunky glitter just before this one. And I'm gonna separate it from the backing. And we're gonna do the same theory and method as the first one. I'm not gonna peel it completely off the paper. I'm gonna start in the back. I wanna go, here, I'll turn sideways so you can see the camera better. I wanna go about 1/4 of an inch down. Hold it and peel the backing away as you go so you don't have a big flapping sticky mess behind you sticking to everything that it touches. Give it some tension and pull and lay it. And give it some tension and pull and lay it. Now this cup is really easy to work on this and do this because it doesn't have much of a contour to it. So I'm not getting any buckling or rippling as I'm trying to go around the corner. If you were, you can just take a little snip and overlay it. And when you go back through and work on the dots for these are going to be like the screws, you can just put one right over where you would have to cut and overlap to avoid the buckling. It's not happening on this cup because this is a very easy cup to work on. That's why I love it. I'll put a link to order if you guys want to order this variety of cup in the drop-down menu. Sorry, I'm concentrating and sticking. All right, I'm coming up towards the end. I want to make sure that it lines up really well. I have just enough tape. Press it down real firm and line that up. I mean, it literally is like perfectly lined up. I didn't have any extra. Okay, so now you have your straps on your wine barrel. These are super fun, and you can go back through now, and we're gonna do these by hand. Move that trash out of the way. For safety, close my X-Acto knife up. So now these are gonna be like your screws on your wine barrel. I'm gonna go from the back, and I'm gonna pretty much hide the seam with one of these screws. And just every so often, you just want to hand place one. You don't want to use transfer tape because you don't want to lift up that little bit of spray sealer won't protect the alcohol ink enough. So I'm just going to do these by hand. They're easy because they're just little dots. Kind of gauge it going in. So you want to just gauge as you go in. You don't want to have to end up having one right next to it. So you just kind of go between that dot and this in your last dot. Just kind of decide where right in the middle is. And there you go. So now you have your bottom strap. And we'll do the same thing for the top strap. I'm going to kind of hide that seam. And just work my way around the cup. Nothing fancy about this. You can measure it and make it exact, but I feel like that's just kind of going to take up a lot of time. So there you go. So there is the wine barrel straps on the wine barrel. It looks really, really cool. It looks super cool, actually. And so we are gonna get this thing on the turner. And you don't need to seal spray it at this point because this is already seal sprayed in, so it's good to go. We can just stick it on the turner and get it going. In doing this and putting the strap on, I noticed a very funny little visitor right here. He must have landed there overnight while this is going. I'm not going to repair on camera because that's, anyway, it's a whole nother tutorial. But if you have not seen repairs on how to fix this, jump onto my Facebook page. I do a lot of live repairs, and because they're just easier to do live on the Facebook page, and I will end up doing this in post-production and removing that and cleaning him off so you won't even know he was ever there. And so we're going to put this guy on a turner and get him turning. All right, guys, here is the finished product. It came out absolutely gorgeous. I put 2 coats of epoxy on the top of it to make sure it had a nice glassy surface and no bumps or anything on it. It came out absolutely stunning. I'm really, really stoked about this one. I can't wait to give this to my mother. She's seen it, of course, but she's eager to get it and get her hands on it and use it. I've got the fun little detail on the bottom. And I hope you guys have fun creating. If you want to keep seeing my videos that come out, subscribe to my channel, click that little bell. It will notify you every time I release a video. I'm releasing them rather quickly. You guys are eating up every video I put out, and I'm loving seeing your creations from them. So I'm trying to turn out a bunch of them as quick as I can so you guys can keep learning and keep expanding your knowledge about all these beautiful tumblers. I can't wait to do this again with you guys, and we'll see you on the next video.